I am Drew Badger, the founder of EnglishAnyone.com and the English Fluency Guide. Welcome to another live video on YouTube. I've got a different setup for today, but yeah, hopefully this works. I wanted to just sit down and talk with people today because I'm working on my book and I wanted to just have a quick conversation with people about that. So assuming video is working, let's find out. I think we are. And it's not saying, okay, I think we are live. All right, I think it is working. All right, so in this video, I want to talk about some ideas from the book, why I'm making it, and also just get some feedback, see if anybody has any questions or specific things that they'd like to know that maybe I have not yet put into the book. So if you don't know already, I've been teaching and helping people learn for over 20 years now. And even here on YouTube, I have, I think, over 700 videos. So that's covering a lot of different things like particular grammar points or conversations, or teaching vocabulary or pronunciation, all kinds of things like that that are required for fluency. But because I have all these things in so many different places and all these different ideas I've shared with people, I really wanted to have one thing or kind of one way to explain all this very simply to people. So I've been teaching, again, for a long time, and much of what I do is automatic. I actually had an interesting conversation with ChatGPT recently just about language learning, because typically if you ask ChatGPT to teach you a language, especially from scratch, it's pretty difficult, and it will typically just help you translate and do the typical kinds of things people do to learn. But in my case, I wanted to make sure that like when I'm talking with ChatGPT, that it actually understands the way I teach. And so part of the things that I do when I'm explaining to ChatGPT are also things that I'm doing when I'm explaining to you out there. So I wanted to talk again a little bit about the book, what's working and or what's going on with it. And when I release it soon, at least the first part of the book, because I want to get people into the book very quickly. I know lots of people are waiting to read it. Again, I've been working on it for over a year, but there have been many iterations or many versions of the book as I've thought about the best way to explain all these ideas. How exactly do you take 20 years of information and even try to focus on a particular point and explain how that works? So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you for all the people who've been following the channel, especially if you have been watching for a long time. And if I've helped you learn already, that's great. I think hopefully when I release the book, it should make everything clear, especially why a lot of the things I do work. And so hopefully that should make some sense. So let me just check chat. I see some chats are coming in here. It looks like some lovely greetings from people. But if you have any questions about like specific things about learning, the book it's not really like a textbook or a phrase book or anything like that. It's really just trying to help you understand one idea. But when I thought about how best to explain this, it really required a book. I did not actually want to sit down and write a book because writing a book, as I've discovered, is a lot of work, and you have to think a long time about ideas, or at least I do. Maybe I am a slow learner, I guess, but it's taken me quite a while to refine my ideas, and that's part of the reason that I've been having these live lesson videos the way I have for the past, I don't know how long it's been, maybe 2 years or something, maybe longer than that. But it's been interesting explaining ideas to people and talking about specific pieces of all this, and it will make a lot of sense when people get to see the whole thing all in one place finally. So I'm looking forward to doing that. And it's also been really great just refining my own ideas and figuring out really the best way to explain what I do. Anyway, let me go back and check chat, see if anybody has any questions, but do let me know if there are specific things you would like to see, like imagine you don't know anything about me or that I'm writing a book. Whether you had to learn from a book or not, you're looking for information about how to get fluent. What exactly would you want to know? So that's part of this conversation today, and probably future conversations, at least some of them here on YouTube. They will come maybe from my questions or things as people read the book. So people should be, hopefully, at least maybe by next week, I think, should be able to get into the first few chapters of the book. At this point, I think there will probably be 8 chapters, and I'm trying to keep the book actually pretty short. It might even be at 100 pages or less, I think. I would like to keep it as short as possible just to make sure people can get in one day, understand exactly what's wrong and how to think about things differently and how to become fluent much faster. So hopefully that will all make sense. Excuse me. But if you have any questions about that or any questions about specific things you'd like to learn or see in a book, like maybe deeper questions, if you have particular questions about grammar, those won't be answered directly in the book, but you will understand how to get answers to those kinds of questions. All right, let's see. Renee says, greetings from Brazil. Sergio says, Sergio Leon, nice to see you there. Mohammed from Gaza Strip. Wow, look at that. Even people in Gaza right now watching videos. I hope everyone is okay over there with a piece of watermelon. Let's see. Good morning from Sudan. H. Ray, good morning from Osaka. And Y. Fun says, good morning, Drew. Followed with some smiley faces there. Let's see. And Kim says, hello from Cambodia. Wow. Dina says, hi. And what is that? Lucky. Hi, does reading aloud help with fluency the way aha moments can? So you're talking about kind of 2 different things here. Aha moments, and this is a big part of the book actually, where I talk about what aha moments are and how to get them. But aha moments are, for people who don't know, it's moments of understanding when you finally recognize something or you realize like, oh, now I understand what something means. And I actually tell quite a few of these stories in the book. But the other part of that is reading aloud, which is another way that you might learn. So often people might have a particular way they're learning, like I'm reading books or I'm trying to talk or I'm trying to do whatever. The whole goal of aha moments is to help you understand the language better. So whatever language you're learning, obviously I focus on helping people learn English. But if you're trying to learn a language or trying to understand anything else, it's like if I take a math problem, if I read the math problem out loud, will it help me understand it better? Maybe, it might. Maybe not, I don't know. And so one of the things that I cover in the book is how focusing on a particular method, it could be helpful, but not necessarily. So often a lot of the things that people do, like watching movies or TV shows or other things like that, they might be thinking, okay, I can learn a lot of English from this. I'm getting a lot of input, but often it's not very strategic. So people have trouble really understanding things. There's often a lot of information coming at the same time. So it's more difficult for people to follow things or to really become certain about what they're learning. So aha moments is, you can think about that as something that happens when you get the right kind of input, and that input could come from reading aloud. So yes, reading aloud could be helpful, but it's not necessarily like by itself just a thing that's going to get you fluent. So the real question is, when you think about any method you might try, like reading aloud or anything else, the question to ask is, will this give me certainty? And so I talk about this in the book as well, about how you might be, again, reading aloud or thinking about any other method you might try, but if it's not really helping you feel 100% certain about using the language, then it's probably not going to help you very much. The tricky thing is that there might be some things you do that, like I gave with the like watching TV shows example. So you could learn a lot from TV shows, but if you don't really structure that content well, it could be overwhelming if you get too much information, or maybe you don't quite understand everything. So the point is not just to get the input or learn in a particular way, it's to get certainty. And so the aha moment is the kind of proof that you've gotten certainty about something. So it could be a phrase or a grammar point or whatever. But yes, so aha moments can come from reading aloud, but again, try not to think about a particular method and think more about, will the thing I'm doing or combination of things actually give me certainty? That's the real question. Because if you don't feel confident and certain when you speak, then that's what's going to cause you to struggle. All right, Kim says, can I ask you about try to understand English they said? Well, can I ask you about try to understand English they said and can't talk with them? I don't understand your question. Can I ask you about try to understand English they said and can't talk with them? Can you rephrase that? Can you say that in a different way? I don't understand what the question is. You're asking other people if they can speak? Marcelo Hyde, teacher, watching from Brazil. Nice to see you there. And Fode says, how to change any verb into a noun. That's like more of a question for Google or ChatGPT for that matter. If you're looking for a specific grammar point thing, like we can take a word, like if we want to take an example, just put like ing on the end of it, and there you go. So like, for example, read, like to read could be a verb, or I guess it is a verb, but I could turn that into a noun by talking about reading as an activity. So there's an example for you. But I'm sure you can Google more of that for specific answers. My book will not be going into detail about things like this, because often, although people might have questions about this, you could ask a native English speaker the same question. So if you go out just on the street, you do a street interview and ask people, hey, how do you change a verb into a noun? And they might look at you like, what do you mean? I don't understand. And so native speakers often don't know a lot about how the language works, although they understand how to use it. And that's the important thing. So another thing to keep in mind as you're trying to learn is, do you need the answer to a question like that, or is the real reason you don't? And of course, we get a fire truck or ambulance or whatever, like usual. The real reason people are struggling to speak is typically not because they don't know grammar answers like that, like a specific question. It's really that they lack certainty about what they want to say. That's the plain truth. But it's a hard thing for people to understand because, and this is another reason why I'm writing this book, but when you think about how to learn a language, if you begin with the goal of trying to speak and you get stuck there, you have to think about why. And this is what I was doing when I was stuck thinking about why I can't speak Japanese. Even though I've been learning it for a year and have been living in the country and trying to speak, I still don't feel very fluent. So when I think about that moment when I try to speak, it's not because I don't know a particular grammar rule, like logically, like I can't describe that. Like if you ask me, I don't know, some question in Japanese like that about how to use a particular grammar rule or how to make it, or what the like verb name or construction of a linguistic term for that, like how an actual language teacher might describe or diagram a sentence, that kind of thing. The problem is I actually lack certainty in the conversation, like either it's uncertainty about language, like I don't know how to pronounce something, or it could be just lots of uncertainty about communication itself. So I'm talking with people, but I don't quite understand them, or I'm worried about people judging me, or I'm worried about making mistakes, that kind of thing. And so what the book is trying to show is that the more you can spend time getting certainty, the better you will be in conversations. You will feel more confident, you will express yourself better, you will really feel confident about really any kind of situation where you're trying to express yourself. So I wouldn't worry. Like any information where you could just get an answer to something, like how do you change any verb into a noun, if you can put that information into Google, it's probably not going to make you more fluent if it's just a question about the language. Again, the thing that people struggle with is not just random questions about the language itself or even language learning. It's just, how do I feel confident and certain when I speak? That's the very foundation of what you need when you're trying to express yourself. Marcia says, hi, watching from Brazil. Thanks for the amazing videos. It's my pleasure. Josette said, good evening from Wilmington. Look at that, in Massachusetts. And Kim again says, I mean, I can understand what they said, but I can't talk back to them like I never try to speak or practice. Yes, so the book will be covering this topic specifically, and it answers the question of why people can often understand a lot but still struggle to speak. So good question, and yes, the book will be covering that. Lucky again, what if you can understand the language deeply, like you can analyze literary texts and but struggle to speak fluently, or remember words during conversations? Yeah, so you're basically saying the same thing as Kim. And what I've explained before, and this is just an interesting bit of, I don't know, like kind of behind the scenes thinking about about language learning. Let me see, I still have my board over here. Maybe I can use that. Kind of. Let's see here. If I put a little bit, I think I can. You get a little bit of reflection behind me, but this might work. So as I mentioned before, one of the things I've been doing on YouTube is having conversations with learners, so with you, about specific ideas and ways of explaining things, because there really is a very simple thing that I do. And if I want to tell people what the method is, it's really just 2 words. But if I told people that, they don't believe me. So I have to basically take them through a longer process of understanding things. And so one of the things I tried to do, answering this specific question, and you will see lots of people on YouTube giving answers for it as well. But the basic problem of, let's see, can you read this? So why can I understand? I'm going to write that very small there. Why can I understand but not speak? And when I originally talked about this, or I guess I have talked about it over the years, I explained it initially with like a simple kind of chart like this, where I'm talking about we go from, like, maybe the first time you hear something, so this would be, you don't know anything at all, you hear something for the first time, and now you're at first, initially, you get exposure to the language. So maybe you hear something, like I'm outside and I hear some people talking. Maybe I can't hear very clearly. I don't know exactly what they're saying, but I can hear it a little bit. So I'm being exposed to the language. So I have maybe 0% understanding before I hear it, and the goal is to get to 100% understanding. So when I explained this before, I talked about the first level being exposure. Second level was being awareness. So you're actually aware of what you're listening to and you can understand it quite well. And then the highest level up here is certainty, or what I called ownership. So I'll put up here certainty. Certainty. So again, forgive my sloppy writing as usual, but so why can I understand but not speak? When I originally tried to explain this to people, I tried to go, I guess, too deep into exactly what's happening here. I feel it's correct, but it's not as useful as just explaining like the light switch moment when you actually feel certain about speaking. So typically what's happening, a lot of people are stuck about here. So they have awareness. They can understand a lot of things. They can read books. They can watch movies. They can even maybe understand everything I'm saying in these videos. And yet they still struggle to speak. So when I explain to people, well, you just don't understand as well as you think you do. That's the basic idea. But it's really much simpler, instead of talking about you lacking ownership of the language, which is correct, just to talk about you not feeling certain. So when you're in a conversation and you're listening to someone, or if you're just watching a movie or something like that, when you're listening, you don't have to understand everything perfectly. And you might not even understand every word, but you know well enough, you can get the general idea of what someone might be saying. And so you can take that and then, okay, now I understand. So you don't need certainty to understand. That's why you can have just awareness of a language or even a particular topic or word or something and understand it. But the difference here is like this part over here, this little bit of doubt. That's the difference between being able to understand and actually communicating. So a lot of people can have a high level of knowledge of the language. They can study academic, material, or watch movies and TV shows, or listen to the news, things like that. But it's because you don't need certainty in order to do that. All right. So when I'm just listening to things, I don't need to know how to build the sentence or need to be correct, because the other person is doing the work for me. I'm just sitting and listening and enjoying the conversation, even if I don't understand every word. So I notice this sometimes when I'm in conversations with people in Japanese. I might hear some new word, like, oh, I've just been exposed to a new word, but I can't quite understand it from context, and it's not perfectly clear, but it's okay. I can understand generally what's happening. And so that little bit of doubt here, that's the thing that stops you from speaking. Because when you try to speak, then you actually need certainty. If you don't feel certain about what you want to say, you're not going to speak. So it's more, instead of trying to think about it like this, which is useful, but it's a little bit too much in detail. That's why I don't include it in the book. All I'm really talking about, it's more like a light switch. If you can think about just like a switch as like, either on or off. Like either we've got something on or we've got it off, like that. And so when you get that light switch moment, and that's why aha moments are so helpful, because they actually give you that moment where you feel, okay, now I got something. I feel confident and certain about saying something. So when you feel that, you can feel confident and certain through repetition, but aha moments are certainly a faster way if you know how to get them. And so again, this idea of this is why you can understand a lot but still have trouble speaking. If you're in a conversation and you're worried about using something, even a particular word, another person might say something, but I don't feel confident maybe responding or something because I'm not certain about what I want to say. All right, so that's the kind of longer answer, but I talk about that in the book, but that's the basic idea, where if you don't feel certain about what you want to say, that's when you're going to struggle to speak. But you don't need certainty when you're just listening, because again, you don't have to understand everything perfectly to follow what other people say. Okay, so I could say maybe 100 words, maybe you understand 90%, so 90 words, but you don't understand all of them, and that's probably okay. But when you start speaking, now you have to feel confident about what you want to say, or you will be worried about mistakes, or even if you're not worried about mistakes, you will maybe just say the wrong thing anyway, or just struggle to connect the sentence in a fluent way. All right, so that's the difference. That's why it's possible to understand things, but still have trouble speaking. So knowing that, we actually need to feel certain about what we want to say. That's why we need to really get those aha moments and feel more confident in conversations by getting that certainty. And the bigger, the bigger point of the book is that you can get this certainty before you speak. So I talk about this a lot on the channel, how the typical reason people give for not being able to get fluent is because they don't have anyone to speak with. And then I say, well, why are you waiting for someone to speak with? And it's because they assume that like the typical, and this is another thing I talk about in the book, but it is interesting to bring it up now, is people believe like what's happening is there's the learning, and then we've got like speaking practice, and then we've got fluency over here. And most people think that you're kind of learning something, but the fluency is only really developing here. So once you start speaking, that's when you really start developing fluency. But what's actually happening is it's coming from here. You're actually developing fluency before you speak, all right? So you're developing fluency before you speak by getting certain about vocabulary or grammar or any other thing like that, all right? So you don't have to wait for anybody to speak with. You certainly can speak if you like, and many people do, but a lot of people struggle. Either they don't have people to speak with, or they're too shy, or they don't have any time to talk with people, whatever. There are lots of reasons why people often struggle with this approach, because it assumes you have to speak in order to get fluent. But what I found is there's an alternative to this, which is really, it's coming more from the learning process where you're understanding the language well and you're getting certain, and you might not feel 100% perfect about the conversation when you get into it, and that's okay. But you can feel a lot better, a lot more confident and certain by just spending more time understanding the language well first, okay? So understanding really begins that process of fluency, and obviously when you do speak, you can develop more fluency when you're in a conversation, but most of that comes from listening to other people talking. So even in a conversation, if I'm speaking with, I don't know, a group of people, like let's say I hear some different native speakers speaking Japanese, and I hear how they describe things to each other. I'm actually learning and developing fluency from that. All right, especially if I understand it well. If I don't understand what they're saying, it's probably not doing much for me. But if I do understand, that's where I'm actually developing fluency. All right, so fluency is not something that has to wait until you start speaking. It's actually something that happens when you start learning. The problem with traditional methods or the traditional thinking about language learning is that most people assume the learning part, like, you're just kind of getting information, but you're not really feeling very confident about it. And they just assume, well, okay, I don't really understand it now, but when I start speaking, I will understand it. But if that's the point, why not just understand it first? Why not just understand it well? All right, so a lot of people just think it's not possible, so that's why they start or think that they need to start with speaking. But what's really happening is that fluency can develop from the point where you're learning. And that's how you can feel confident and prepared before you speak. All right. So the goal is to get to confidence and being able to speak, have good conversations with people, but you don't have to force yourself to talk in order to do that. Okay. All right. Let's continue. Got some more questions here. All right. Jean with a smiley face. Vlog says, hi, sir. I've been watching your live videos. I'm trying to improve my accent to have an American accent. Is it really about discipline and time, or just logically catching the method of talking? All right. If you're talking about accent, just to make sure you're not talking about like pronunciation, or are you talking about a specific accent, like the way people speak, like different dialects, like, you know, the way someone in the United States might speak differently in Texas rather than in New York. So depending on what you're going for, the two things I always remind people of for any kind of sound related stuff, so we're talking about accent or pronunciation or intonation or whatever, the first thing is just to understand the sounds of English, and you should learn that systematically. What people often do, I'll just use this as an example. I might say, okay, we're going to learn how to pronounce all these words up here. And these are really just a bunch of random words. I mean, it is a sentence here, but if we're looking at trying to teach pronunciation this way, I say, okay, class, repeat after me. Why, can, I. And we go through it like understand but not speak or whatever, and I'm going through these various words that I have up here. It's not systematic. It's just teaching you a bunch of things. And the problem with this approach, and again, I talk about this in the book, is that it's not giving you a way to really understand accent or pronunciation in a systematic way. So instead, we want to look at making the language sensible or logical for our brain. And one of the ways we do that, which I cover in the book, is by being able to compare different things. So as an example, we can talk, let's see, bag, big, big, bog, bug. Now this is not a short U sound or short O sound, which would be like con, but you get the idea. So for example, this word is k, con, but this is aw, like a bog or dog. So the sound is a little bit different. But what's happening here is we're being systematic about comparing related sounds and hearing how they're different. And if you can control this, like you can look at these different things and compare very quickly the difference between bag or bug. So we'll just go through these and you can hear how I'm pronouncing them differently. So I'm not taking a bunch of random words and, saying, okay, I just want you to practice all these random words and we're going to cover these in your spare time and you got to work hard at doing that. This is the easier, faster, and simpler way to do it because you're making it clear for your brain. Here we go. Bag, beg, big, bog, bug. One more time. Bag, beg, big, bog, bug. So these are all short vowel sounds except for this one. I'm just using as an example because the one thing I'm changing, like a science experiment, I'm keeping these letters the same, the B and the G sound. I'm only changing the middle vowel, just so you can hear the difference. But as you compare these, it really becomes easy for your brain to understand how, okay, this sound is different here. Now I can understand in this context how this word, how this letter might sound. And if you learn the language like this, if you learn the language in a systematic way, you can learn pronunciation and accent and all that stuff very easily. So this is one part of that. I'll just give you one more example about how things might change. So we might have like the word mat, M-A-T, mat, or we have mate, mate. So now if we have the E on the end of that, the brain sees this very easily. Oh, okay, that's interesting. We've got mat and then mate. When we have the E on there, instead of me telling you what a particular rule is, this is me just letting you discover that for yourself. So mat versus mate. So pronunciation, learning the rules of things. The first part of this is why I built Frederick. You can click on the link in the description below this video to learn more about that. But I made this whole app for people because I couldn't find anything like this where it was very easy to compare all these different sounds in a systematic way. So going from just the basic alphabet letters all the way up to more difficult sounds or difficult words like synthesis or capture or whatever. So that kind of thing. So that's the first part of pronunciation and accent, that kind of thing. So anything dealing with not only listening, but producing the right sounds. The other part is listening to how people like natives, real people in real conversations, blend these things together. So if you're only listening to something like Frederick, it will be more difficult when you get into a conversation because people actually blend the sounds of things together. Like I might have like gonna. So you've probably seen this, G-O-N-N-A. So gonna is short for going to. So often natives will blend or abbreviate their sounds and just make them shorter like that because it's faster and easier to say. So I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to go to the store after I finish work. I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to go to the store. So instead of I'm going to go, we don't say that. So part of these two pieces here, if you use them together, that's the most efficient way to understand listening and pronunciation. So we want to hear natives actually talking, kind of using these same sounds, hearing how people would communicate in real conversations, but that's how you do it. And so you can tailor, when you mentioned accent before, if you're talking about a particular accent, like a particular dialect of American English, for example, you can listen to people from Texas, like by watching YouTube videos about people from Texas talking about whatever you're interested in, and you can hear lots of examples of how they speak the language a little bit differently. You'll learn slightly different vocabulary, but also hear the difference in pronunciation. All right? So those two things, paying attention for learning the specific sounds and then also hearing how those sounds get blended in real communication. This is how natives learn the language, specifically for learning pronunciation and listening. You'll obviously learn a lot of vocabulary as well, but that's why I created the programs I did, because I wanted to take what natives are doing, but actually put it in a systematic way that's very easy for learners. Actually, lots of native speakers use this method as well. They use Frederick, especially for young kids learning how to read, but a lot of adult non-natives use it to learn pronunciation and listening and vocabulary building as well. So if you'd like to learn more about that, you can download the app right now and start playing with it. Just click on the link in the description of this video. But good question. So remember those basic two things. We're talking about individual sounds, and then we're also talking about how we can connect those different things. But that's how you can actually get a specific accent or develop your pronunciation or sound what any real kind of native speaker you'd like. Yabu says, hello from Nashville. That is my man. Well, there you go. I've learned in 1 year English, same method that you explain all the time. I was struggling a lot a few months ago. I saw your videos, which fixed my problem. Awesome. I'm glad to help. Let me know if you have any particular questions and give me some more detail. What specific things were you struggling with before, and what did you start doing differently that now has improved you? Because that could be good information for the book as well, if I haven't covered it already. Let's see here. Rolla, nice to see you there. Annie says, hi, teacher. I'm Silviani from Indonesia. Nice to meet you in this opportunity. Welcome. Tarek and Teresa, nice to see you there. Good class. Verdun says, hello, everyone. Good evening or good morning. Yes, it depends on where you are. Antonio says, keep up the good work. Thank you. And Almi's got, let's see, we got thumbs up and pink hearts and red hearts. Manuel says, hello. It's 3 a.m. in Pretoria, South Africa. Look at that. Taco says, repeating is meaningful after some chunks or phrases when it comes to naturally review. So he's mentioning, I think, naturally varied review, which is getting a variety of examples that help you understand things better. These often contribute to aha moments as well. But I'll make a point about the order of repetition or using repetition. One of the problems that people have when they're learning is they might let's see, what's a good way to explain this? They might learn a particular word, and let's just say we'll use the word big over here. You probably know what this means already, but let's say you do not understand what it means. And often, like a teacher will explain it, or they'll give you a translation or something, and then you will just repeat that word again and again. You say the word big, 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 big. Maybe you repeat it with flashcards, that kind of thing. And then when you go into a conversation, maybe you can use it, maybe you cannot. If you don't feel certain about it, probably not. So this is the typical way people do things, like the traditional English as a second language approach. But what I recommend instead is really making sure you feel certain, so certainty first, about what you're learning. So if you don't really understand the word big, you should get varied examples of that thing. So like I might have like a big heart. So we've got like a big heart versus a small one over here. So look at that. This is a big heart and this is a small heart, relatively. or I could have like a big, I don't know, a big hope about doing something. So more figurative use of that. But again, I'm trying to think about really understanding what big means all in English by getting a variety of native examples. The point is, after I understand something, if I feel certain about it, then I can get a little bit of repetition. Repetition will help push that into my brain, but the naturally varied review is repetition as well. So typically, I would usually think it's better to hear a variety of examples of the word or phrase or whatever, rather than just hearing the word kind of by itself as a thing you repeat like that. So repetition is most useful after you already understand something well. But repetition is not going to help you understand things better because it's not giving you any new information. Another example I give from the book is if you close one eye and look at something in your room or wherever you are, if I try to look at this marker right now with one eye open, I can't exactly see where it is. I can't tell how far away it is. I mean, I can see generally, this is kind of like listening. Like I can generally tell where it is, even if I don't know exactly where it is. So I can see it, but I can't quite grab it. But when I open the other eye, I can actually see where it is. So if I just look with one eye and I repeat that again and again, I keep looking, I'm blinking like that. This is the same idea of repetition. Looking at the marker again and again with the same eye, it's not helping me because it's not adding more information. It's not giving me anything new to help me really understand what this is. And that's what we need the naturally varied review for. So yes, repetition is useful, but getting that naturally varied review is going to give you that repetition naturally. And even if you understand something, like you get an aha moment, it's usually good to get additional review of that thing. So if I learn something, like I can sometimes hear new vocabulary in Japanese, but I might forget that, even if I understand it in the moment. Like, what did I learn? Like, I don't know, like a word recently, like Hotoke-san, so like the Buddha. I might learn a new word and understand that in context, like, oh, I understand what people are talking about, but maybe I forget the word if I don't review it a little bit of time after that. So the review is necessary, but repetition, again, is not adding more information, so it's not going to make it easier for your brain to learn things. We want you to learn first, feel certain first, and then use that repetition if you just want to like hear the word again and again, which is okay. But the naturally varied review, where you hear a variety of examples, so you might hear different contexts or different speakers or different tenses or different speeds or accents, that kind of thing. All of that is going to contribute and really prepare you for real communication. That's really what we're going for here. We want to especially get a variety of examples because we don't know what we're going to find when we're in a real conversation with someone. We don't know if they're going to speak quickly or slowly or have a particular accent, so we need to be prepared for that. We can't practice and prepare for a language in the same way that we would practice a piano song. So at home, if I want to learn a song on the piano, I can play the piano over and over and over again. It's that repetition. And we talk about practice making perfect, like practice makes perfect, practice makes perfect. But in a real conversation, that's different from playing the piano at a concert because you practiced it. And the difference is one is predictable and the other is not. So we don't know how people are going to speak. We don't know what words they're going to use or whatever. So yes, like even developing muscle memory about things is maybe going to help you in some situations, but it's not going to help you in others, because what if people say something different? What if they pronounce it differently? What if they use words that you don't know? What then? So it's much better to give yourself, if you're talking about how much time you have to learn, it's much better to get a variety of examples rather than just trying to repeat one thing again and again. And the nice thing is that that variety will also give you repetition, but make sure you understand things and help you understand it and remember it well. All right, looks like we got some more comments coming in over here. I can't read the Chinese. Nice to see you again. Honey says, I think that to acquire the English, you must first prepare yourself psychologically. What does that mean? Let me know. Hello, teacher. Good morning. Aglin says, I bag to beg, a bog, bug. Luckily, so you gain certainty just by viewing different examples on Google. I still forget, or hearing different people use the same word, context, idiom in different contexts. Not necessarily. That's what can contribute to you getting certainty about something, but you're more likely, let's just say about this particular point, you're more likely to get certain about something by viewing it or learning it or getting examples of it in different ways rather than just trying to repeat something again and again. So if I teach you a new word, what's a new word? What's a new word? Now I can't think. There are like thousands of words and I can't think of just a word. About what's a good word? I'm trying to think of an interesting lesson very quickly. Now I'm drawing a blank. I can't think of a word. It's because there are lots of words I could use. This is what ChatGPT is useful for. I say, hey, give me a word about this, and ChatGPT can give it to me. But let's say, what's a good word? Here, here, I'll give you, instead of just a random phrasal verb, to clam up. To clam up. Now, if you don't know what to clam up means, then like the only thing I can do, if I'm not going to give you like some good examples of it, is I can give you a definition of this. I can give you a translation of this if I know your native language, and then we could repeat the phrase again and again. To clam up, to clam up, to clam up. So the way naturally varied review works differently than this is we want to see, number one, when people are using something, so in what situation, but also think about like why we might talk about this, or even see a variety of examples that help us understand like what some of these pieces might be. So let's say we know what like a clam is. Do you know what a clam is? So a clam, this is a kind of like a shellfish. So I'm going to draw. It should be pretty easy to draw here if I can fit this on here. It kind of looks like this. It's almost like a little hamburger thing, but it opens up like that. A clam, you've probably seen that. So a clam can open itself like that, or it can close itself up. So if I talk about a person, like let's say here's an example. I was talking with a friend of mine, and or I was asking a friend of mine to tell me about what he was doing with his work or something like that. But he was being a little bit secretive. He didn't tell me much about it, and I started asking him like some more personal questions, and he clammed up. So he was like, "Nah, I don't want to talk about it really." And I'm looking at his body language, and he's kind of closing himself up like that. He clammed up about it. And so as you see examples of this, rather than just looking at the word in a vacuum, like it's just a word without some kind of context or whatever, the examples that you get, like knowing what a clam is, like this kind of, it's better to just Google Google an example of clam. So do a Google image search specifically for clam, and you will see probably like clam chowder or some soup or something like that. But that's what a clam looks like. If you open it up, it kind of has a clam. We call this a clam shell, like a clam shell shape, but it kind of looks like that. Just Google it. It's better than my bad pictures of especially something it's hard to show what it looks like. But this is the clam when it's closed up. So you can imagine my hands. a clam looks like that. Anyway, Google it and you can see some images of what a clam looks like. But the point is, the traditional way you would learn a language is you would have a list of phrasal verbs like this, and then you would try to memorize them and maybe remember their definition, or here's a few examples or something. But when you really understand what it means, and that's why I'm giving you examples. Like I was talking with my friend, and at first he was kind of open like this, but he's kind of secretive about what he's working on. So I'm asking him more questions, and I notice his body language is like he's kind of clamming up a little bit. He's clamming up. So what do you think that means? All right. So if we understand what a clam is, what a clam can do, then it makes more sense. Like, okay, how to learn this way by getting a variety of examples. And so we need to understand, it could be understanding part of the word, or just seeing how the vocabulary is actually used in a particular situation. But that's what's happening. So yes, like it's a shellfish that can open and close like that. So if I said someone clammed up about something, what does that mean, do you think? What do you mean? What do I mean when someone clams up? So I thought this was like a little bit better. I like phrasal verbs because we can give a good visual explanation. But you can do this really with anything by getting examples and typically using the words in context. And so, yeah, I mean, it works kind of like an oyster in the same way that you've got two shells, and a clam is just a different kind of thing, but it has this same sort of style. Anyway, so if you didn't understand what I meant, I would probably give you maybe some more examples, but just for time here, you can guess like clamming up is maybe you're feeling a little bit more nervous. I'm being more silent. I'm protecting myself a little bit. I'm clamming up, to clam up. Now, you should be feeling that aha moment as you get those examples because you understand what I mean. Now you look at clam up and it's like, okay, now I get it. All right. So this is why we want to get a variety of actual examples of things to see how people do it. And if you can't get it from one example, we don't want to just repeat something again and again. If I don't understand something yet, I should get a different kind of example. Okay. So maybe first, when I look at something like this, what is a clam? That might be something to think about. Like I go to Google and do an image search and think, okay, I get some images of that and like, to clam up. And so I have a kind of physical example of something like that. But when do people use that? And this is another thing I talk about in the book, where you switch from thinking about vocabulary translation or even trying to look for words or phrases or grammar to thinking about what do natives say in particular situations. So when people are angry, what do they say? When people are confused, what do they say? What do people say when they're talking about whatever? And so looking at the broader situation, that's where you can understand more things like that. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, let me go back. Looks like quite a few questions here. Oh my goodness, let's see here. I'm going to have to be faster with my with my explanations. I didn't think there would be this many questions. Anyway, all right. So again, you gain certainty just by viewing different examples on Google. I still forget, or hearing different people use the same word, phrase, etc. in different contexts. Yes, and it could be different for different situations. Like it could be different for particular words. Maybe a physical thing, you need to see different examples of it. Maybe for a non-physical thing, you need to see different examples when some vocabulary might be used. And this is why it's better, again, to get that naturally varied review rather than to focus on repetition. And people typically look for translations of things because they don't understand. So instead of using the translation, get more examples in English that help you understand things. And right now it's very easy. If I want to talk about like you could probably go on to, let's see, actually I can do a search on YouTube right here to clam up. Let's see, and you will get, and another tricky thing is because people are learning on YouTube, a lot of times if you search for particular vocabulary, you will get a lesson video about that, but we're looking for more like particular examples of people using things. So it's funny how you might you might be trying to look for information, and a lot of these things are going to be more lesson focused, like traditional explanations of stuff. But try to get as many examples as you can to really understand something. That's the idea here. All right, Blanca says, thanks for the videos. And Ali says, hello, I got better fluency thanks to your videos. Glad to hear it. Alexander says, when is your book going to be available to purchase, and how can someone living in Africa access it? Are you planning to circulate its soft copy too? So probably next week. I will have a digital version, it will be probably the introduction with the first 3 chapters available, so I can get people into it, reading it, and letting me know if there's anything they don't understand, and things like that. So it should be next week. That's my plan, to have that done. I have the outline, and I'm just working through the chapters, but I don't want to wait to get it out. I want people keep asking me for the book, and I want them to be able to have it. So probably next week, it will be digital at first, and when I finally have a finished version, I will release probably a physical version as well. But I know more people can just access the digital version easily, so there you go. Should be next week. Alexander says, I read that one. Aglin says, a bag and a bug. There we go. And Avlog says, you are great, man, bro. When we ask questions, and if the question might direct to a different thing, you explain either way. I appreciate it. Yeah, I tried to. If something is completely unrelated, maybe I won't address it. But Teresa says, hello, teacher. I'm Teresa from Brazil. Aglin says, love English. Ed Nielsen says hello from Brazil. Yabu said, I have just one question. How can I shut things in my head down when I get conversation with native English speakers? Honestly, I can deal with it when I smoke a little weed. Do you have any advice? How can I just shut things down? Do you mean like there's too much happening in your head when you try to speak? Is that what's happening? So I know lots of Japanese people, they often start speaking more English when they drink alcohol, but that's for a different reason. That's more about cutting off the fear of making mistakes that they might feel. And that's when they want to communicate, but the alcohol kind of makes it possible to do that. It sounds like you have a different kind of problem, though. Maybe your mind is too busy. Let me know what you mean by that, though. Sam Crook says, you too long time since last life with you. Love to hear you life and replying to our moments. Tim says, how do I teach my sister's kids English from scratch? Note that mine is not so good. I might not be the best at teaching them. What's the proper way to do it? Or should I just give them Frederick? Yes, give them Frederick and have them watch the best beginning English grammar playlist here on YouTube on my channel. So I made that specifically for people who don't know English. So if they can watch that and they do Frederick, they will be able to teach themselves very quickly. Aglin says, watching you from Southern California. Ooh, that must be nice. I like that area. Let's see. So Tim Stowe, that would be a challenging job. But yes, I made it very easy. So anyone, whether you are trying to help your own kids learn English, don't give them the traditional methods. Actually let them teach themselves, and they can do that with Frederick. That's the reason I made the app. There are many different groups of people who can benefit from it, but especially the children of non-natives. So for many years, I've been helping adults, but now, those people get older, they have kids, and I can help those kids too. So give them Frederick and have them watch that beginning grammar. I think it's called the Best Beginning English Grammar playlist. But the point of that playlist is to help you understand English all in English. There are some sections where I talk about, where I have like examples of grammar, because I know, like grammar tables, because I know people are interested in that. But the app, Frederick, will show you how to do that. The next app I want to make, probably after I release the book, I will start working on that, is for the slightly higher level, because we already have Fluent for Life for people who already know a lot of English but still can't speak. So Frederick is for beginners and also for people who know a lot of English but still have trouble with their pronunciation. All right, compare English acquiring with the native language learning. We may get some advice from our own native language since childhood. Yeah, so I talk about this in the book and how many years ago I thought that it was easier to explain to people like you got the native way of learning and then you got the traditional way of learning. But what's a better way to explain it is that often native speakers are not learning very efficiently either. So learners, they're trying to be very efficient, but they're not actually learning what you need to learn for real communication. And native speakers are learning what you need for communication, but it's not very efficient. And that's why I might show my daughter a movie, but she doesn't understand a lot of the content. She'll still watch the movie and enjoy it, but it's like for kids' movies, there are jokes for adults in those movies that kids don't understand. And so a smart parent is actually figuring out how to do both. So whether I'm learning a second language or I'm trying to teach my own kids my language, I want my kids to learn English and also Japanese, but I want to do that very efficiently. So I help them understand things and make it very clear for them. So I'll give you an example. This was an aha moment that I created for my daughters, although they weren't really listening to me. But I think maybe I told this story a week or two ago, but my wife's sister, who is Japanese, she was visiting us, and we were watching some cartoon on TV, and I said, hey, wait a minute, like this is the same episode we saw on Saturday. So I said, this is the same episode we saw on Saturday. And so I said, I guess they run the original episode on Saturday and the reruns are on Thursday. So I was teaching them the word or the phrase, this idea of a rerun, without actually telling them that. I was using the context of the situation. And although my kids didn't really pay attention, my wife's sister did. So her English is actually quite good. And she heard that and she was like, naruhodo ne, rerun. So she understood me, and naruhodo is like the Japanese for like, aha. It's the same kind of idea, like how native English speakers might say aha, like I got it, now I got it. A Japanese person would say naruhodo ne. So you understand something much better that way. Anyway, in that situation, that's where I'm able to give people like those same kinds of moments. And so if you're trying to like teach your kids in the same way, they will be able to teach themselves and give themselves lots of those things, especially playing with Frederick. All right. So hopefully that answers that question. But remember, I also used to say like you should be learning like a native, but it's actually better to say you can learn more efficiently than a native does, typically. All right, vlogs again. I'm from Uzbekistan. My language is Uzbek. I am a car shipment broker in the U.S. a car hauler. I talk daily with Native Americans, and I really want to talk like a native. I know you as a teacher. Give me some advice how to get there. I am really trying, but I'm not seeing results. I'm kind of in the dark. So when you read my book, you will get it. You will think, okay. So, and this is a tricky thing. Like I could try to explain everything to you now, but that's why I'm writing the book, because I've covered lots of these things in various emails or lessons or videos here on YouTube, but I want to share the whole story. So you just have one place where you can see exactly what's happening, exactly what's not working and why. So you really understand that, the typical things people do, some of it works, some of it does not. Why is that? Why am I able to speak about some things and not speak about others? Like these are the specific questions I answer, but I think you will really enjoy the book. It's been, again, like a really long time working on it, over a year, and I would start working in, and then I'd just trash that version and start a new one and trash that version. And but the one I'm working on now, I think, is the best example. So it's what I'm thinking of. All the questions that I get from people, I answer them all systematically in the book, but it's a story. So you go through it and you think, okay, now I get it. The whole point is to help you understand that. Bongo says, my first time to join you live. Welcome. Ildar says, what's going on? Drew, Tom, nice to see you there. Tsubasa, big love from Fukuoka. with the DAP, yeah, I need to get back up to Fukuoka. I miss Fukuoka. I think I'll probably live up there at some point. That's my goal. I keep talking with my wife about that, to move up there. Eklund says, your naturally varied review, I think, is awesome. Cannot remember the name of your video where I first encountered it. Made sense, therefore, I upped my English skills. Yep, glad to hear it. Yeah, I've talked about that in many videos, and it's, again, instead of just repeating things, you want to get different examples of them to really make sure you understand them well. That's the basic idea. Well, and let's see, we got a bonsoir, a good evening. All right, I think, let's see, people are talking about oysters and stuff. Let's see. So LPPL says a kyowa atarashi utsukushi basho ga arimasu ne. Actually, I'm in the same spot. But I just don't have, like, got the whiteboard around me over here, but so I'm in the same room, but yes, and I'm also sitting down. So I thought I would just relax. This is more of a conversation about the book and what I'm working on, and seeing if I have any good questions from you. And like most of the things people are asking me, I'm happy about, because those are all things I cover in the book. Bongo says again, thank you so much, sir, for your great work. Thanks to your content, I'm able to see a glimmer. You would say a glimmer. A glimmer of hope. It's like just like a little bit, a glimmer of hope. Yes, and the book, I think, should give you lots of hope. As you read it, you will think, wow, I finally got it. Now I understand why this is working. And I know lots of people have made books about language learning over the years, but the reason I'm making mine is because I think people still aren't getting it. Most of the people, and I was explaining this actually to, let me know if you want me to like explain a little bit deeper about the book. Maybe I'll kind of save why I'm doing that, but let me know in the comments. Be pride or confident in output English. If the native speaker cannot understand us, it is their problem. Because we are new learners, thinking this way, I communicate more naturally, bravely. Yes, like that's one way to do it, but it's more like forcing yourself to do something. And if you just keep talking, but people don't actually understand what you're saying, that's probably not going to be very helpful for you or the other person. So instead, you don't have to put pressure on yourself to speak, and that's what I talk about in the book. The typical way people think they have to learn is they're learning a little bit, they don't really understand, but when they start speaking, that's when they will develop fluency. So they're looking for all these opportunities to speak. They think they need people to speak with in order to do that, but I'm saying that you don't need that. You actually can get lots of good examples even before you find people to talk with. So that way, when you do get into conversations, you can have good conversations. You don't have to feel like you're being brave or speaking even if you're going to make mistakes. You can solve all of that even before you speak. Wouldn't that be nice? See, a lot of people still think, even if I tell you that, it's not possible to do it. And that's why I'm writing the book. So I would love to just tell that. I don't want to write a whole book. Like it's a lot of work, I'll tell you, to write a book. Maybe that's just me, but it takes a long time, especially for me writing a book for non-native speakers. So I have to be careful with my language. Let's see. And I'm following Drew Badger since 2016. When he has helped understand speak English. I'm thankful for that. Glad to hear it. Alexander says, how long you think would an average person use better approaches like that of getting a variety of examples to become a fluent English speaker? Well, very quickly. I can't say like how long exactly. It more depends on the specific thing you want to speak, but you actually become fluent in particular things as you understand them. So, like even me as a native English speaker, I can speak very well about learning languages, but I cannot speak very well about fixing cars because I don't know anything about that. I don't know the vocabulary. I don't know car parts. I mean, I could probably learn pretty quickly, but as far as fluency goes, it's really talking about getting fluent in particular things, and that's another idea within the book of instead of trying to get fluent in English, think about the specific things you struggle with, and you can get fluent in those things. You can solve those particular problems that you might have about pronunciation or some lacking vocabulary, something like that. So it would be very quick, like within a few days, if that. It's more like a few hours even of being able to talk about a particular thing. So if I want to learn how to, I don't know, even fixing cars, for example, like I could probably watch a couple of different videos in one day about that, spend an hour even just taking something specific like how do I fix or how do I put a new wheel, a new tire on my car. If I watched 10 different videos about that, and I could probably do that in maybe an hour or less, I would feel pretty confident talking about that. So even if I'm doing that in Japanese, like I would still learn that quite quickly. All right. So it's not more, it's like the idea, and this is another thing that you will find in the book, is people typically have the idea of how long does it take to get fluent. So they're thinking more about specific lengths of time, like an hour or 2 hours or 10 hours, like how long does it take? But I'm trying to get people to see it in a different way, which is how quickly can you get certainty? That's the idea. So typically when people are learning things, they might spend a long time. They might spend a week or a month, or many people spend years without really getting certain about what they learn. And that's why they can't speak. They can understand a lot, but they still don't have that certainty that lets them feel confident speaking. So the idea is not how long you learn, but how quickly can you get these moments of certainty where I feel confident talking about particular things, or particular vocabulary, or particular grammar, or whatever it is I'm trying to learn. So that's the important thing. And so if you can get certainty quickly, then you can become fluent very quickly. That's the idea. So the faster you get these aha moments or just understanding, so you feel confident about what you want to say, the faster you get fluent. Let's see. Tom says, love Frederick. I am a beginner, I guess. Well, even if you are a beginner or an advanced person, you don't necessarily need to be one or the other. Lots of people enjoy Frederick, and for different reasons. But I'm glad you do. If you do enjoy Frederick, please leave us a review on the Google Play Store or the App Store. And if you have not tried it, just click on the link in the description below the video to get it. Sam Crooks says, one of the greatest benefits of your lessons is that we teach our kids to teach themselves. I pray God blessings on you and your loved ones. Well, thank you very much. Again, yes, that's the whole idea, trying to make sure we let people, if they can, discover things themselves, because they will feel much more confident about the things they learn if they are the ones who discover them. All right, this scenario is better, guys. Hit the like button. Onagai shitai to omoimasu. Bai says, what do you think about comprehensible input? Is it important? Yes, so I talk about comprehensible input in the book, actually, and I mentioned Krashen specifically. But what I remind people of that, like, we don't just want a bunch of input. The point is to get certainty as quickly as possible, and often that comes by getting comprehensible input. So lots of people, they focus on just input itself without really worrying or thinking about what is the reason why we're doing that. And so we want to get the comprehensible input in a specific way to make sure we're getting to certainty as quickly as possible. So yes, comprehensible input it's just another way of describing understandable messages or learning a language in a way that's understandable for you. So if I just started speaking, I don't know, or if I heard someone, for example, if someone just started speaking to me in Russian and just started like talking, lots of stuff, and I don't understand anything they're saying, that's not comprehensible input because I don't understand what they're saying. But if we can begin, like I've given this Japanese example before, but maka, ao, aoi maka, aka, akai maka, ao, aka, kuroi maka, kuroi maka. Aka, akai maka, ao, aoi maka. That's comprehensible input. And this is making it very simple for people. Even if you don't get everything or remember everything immediately, if I could continue doing this, you would get fluent over time and you would feel certain even before you speak. Okay? So this is what it means. Like, the point is to get comprehensible input, but as a teacher, I'm thinking, how can I give you the right input such that you feel certain as quickly as possible? If I just start speaking or I give you some maybe bit of understanding, but you're not quite sure what something means, you're going to struggle with that. So that's why it's important to make sure you get that certainty. All right, so that's what I do. And the great thing, again, as I keep reminding people, is you can get that certainty before you speak. All right, you don't have to spend time looking for people, trying to find speaking practice partners or whatever. You can get lots of good examples. They're already waiting. All the content is done. It's very easy once you start thinking about the best way, how can I just get more examples of the things I need to get certainty? That's the idea. Let's see. Sam Crooks says, please correct the mistakes we make in our comments or tell us how to say it better, because corrected mistakes will never be made again. Let us learn from these mistakes. Well, it would take more time than I'm trying to do to correct everybody's mistakes in the comments. And sometimes I, again, generally understand what people are trying to say, even if they make mistakes, but I just don't have time to sit and correct everybody's mistakes here. Let's see, Alexander. Best depend on a matter you can be fluency. And I'm going to leave my contact to practice English with someone here. So again, there will always be people who say, hey, let's meet and practice English, but I will repeat again and again, it's not necessary to do this. You don't have to spend time meeting and practicing with people, and it's actually a better use of your time if you just get more examples. So I could try to find someone to talk with, and that would like take some time out of my day, and then I'd have to meet the person and talk with them. Maybe I learned something, maybe I don't. I don't know. Maybe I feel more fluent, maybe I don't. It's not just the talking that's developing fluency. The main thing that people don't realize is that when they're in a conversation, you can repeat more things yourself, but you're not really, just like you're not really getting more fluent by the repetitive learning, you're also not really developing more fluency by just repeating things you already know. You do get more fluent by listening to other people, especially native speakers, talking. And if that's true, and it is, then we don't need to be in a conversation with people. We just need to get lots of examples that help us understand the language. So right now, if you're learning anything from me, and hopefully you are, then you should recognize, oh, I'm not actually speaking with Drew. I'm just listening to him talk, and he's giving lots of good examples of the language and helping me understand vocabulary or giving me examples of ways to speak. You're getting all of that without speaking, without having a conversation with me. So don't wait for people to speak with. Even if you do speak, you might not get a lot of good chances or a lot of good input that can help you really feel more confident. It's just not a very efficient way to learn, although it sounds like something people should be doing. But remember, and this is another big thing I talk about in the book, where, again, as I mentioned earlier in this video, the preparation for communication is different than preparation for swinging a golf club or playing a piano song or something like that. In those cases, you're practicing doing something that you can perfect. But in real communication, you have to be ready for unpredictable people, talking about whatever, like unpredictable situations, people bringing up new things or changing topics or speaking faster or with an accent you're not familiar with. All of those things can happen. So the preparation needs to match that. All right, so instead of trying to learn a phrase and practice it, repeating it to yourself, you need to get lots of good examples of how different people speak. That's the fastest, most efficient way to prepare. So that way, when you see those things in real conversations, you feel ready for it. You're not surprised or thinking, oh, wait a minute, all these native speakers, they sound different than my English teacher does. Of course they do, because it's a different kind of environment, okay? So there will be some people who don't follow my advice. That's okay. I don't expect everyone to do that. But my book is really for people who have been trying to learn and practice for a long time. They feel like they've really been doing a hard job. They're doing the effort. They're trying to spend time to learn and practice or whatever, and that will cause them to have like, I don't know, like they're just really frustrated because they've been doing those things and not seeing much progress. And so what I'm showing in the book is that it's not your fault, and there actually is a much easier way when we start thinking about fluency differently. It's not about trying to learn things and then practice saying them until we understand them well. You can do all of that even before you speak. All right. All right, looks like we got almost to the end there. Let's see. Rocky says the psychological distance with foreign people can be different depending on where they come from. I always get stuck by thinking of the right words for them, resulting in not being fluent. The psychological distance with foreign people. Are you talking about the way people communicate? Like, what specifically do you mean about that, Rocky? And let's see. And Matula says a fish, I guess. Says, Tsubasa says, are you still in touch with Sean, the guy who is unbelievable at mimicking Donald Duck voice? Yeah, I haven't spoken with him in a while. I think he's doing well. I believe he got married, I think a few years ago, actually. But yeah, I haven't been back to America in a while, but when I go back, it would be nice to see him, but he's doing well. Anyway, how long has this been going? 80 minutes. I did not anticipate this would last that long, but it was some nice confirmation for the book. Lots of questions I'm getting here are all things that I cover in the book, and it will be nice. Sometimes I can ramble a little bit, like I'm continuing to talk about things, but when I'm writing, I can really take time and be careful with my words and also try to express things as quickly as possible. So the way I'm writing the book is I have all these different ideas. First, I have to organize them, think about what things should be in what places, and now I'm going back and editing all of that stuff. So let me know, who the people still watching this video, would you like access to the first couple of chapters as soon as possible? I think it would be only like, I don't know, $5 or something like that. Who would pay $5 for this book? So it should be pretty, like, very inexpensive for the amount of value. You're going to get 20 years of advice distilled down into a very short book, well, like as short as possible. But it should be available. If you are already on my email list, I will give a link probably pretty soon. But as I mentioned, I think probably next week, because I want, again, even before I finish the book, I have all the chapters outlined in detail, but I want to get more people in and make sure that I'm communicating these ideas well. So if I write the first version and people think, I don't understand this, Drew, what are you talking about? Then I'm doing something wrong. So hopefully I'm not, but I want to get that to people so they can let me know if they have any corrections or if there are any questions that the book still needs to answer, that kind of thing. So if you want to be in this kind of book club thing, I will also leave I'll put a link probably next week when I do the next YouTube live video where I talk about that, assuming it is ready by then. It should be. Fingers crossed. So this is my good luck there. But I'm feeling good about the first couple of chapters. So the first 3 chapters are really about changing the way you think. So again, it's easy to just tell you what the method is, but you probably wouldn't believe me if I just told you. Kind of like how I've been doing this in different videos or even in today's video. But I think it should make more sense when you're able to see all these things working together. But it should feel good. Anyway, so it will be probably like $5, I think. Again, like to get in that, and those people who join this club, they'll get access to the chapters as I release them, as well as all final and updates to the book and the audiobook version assuming I do that. I would probably like to do that. It might not be my voice. We'll see. It might also be interesting to get a variety of voices for that, which I think could be interesting as well, because that's part of the theme of the book, getting that naturally varied review. So if you could listen to different versions of the audiobook, that could be interesting. It's a little bit more work for me, but I think it could be helpful for people. But anyway, so if you're interested in that and you don't mind paying $5 for some good information that really can change the way you think, and you like what I do, I think you will appreciate that and enjoy being part of this early access. All right, so Tim says, are you considered a fluent speaker if native people can tell you're not native, even though your English is just as good as them? I have this belief. Is this true? Well, I mean, I can speak Japanese fluently and nobody thinks I'm Japanese. So the ability to use a language well, it doesn't matter about who you are, or like, you know, if you look different or whatever. It's more about making sure you understand and can use the language without thinking. That's the important part. It's not about, you know, where you're from or whatever. All right, Josette says, sure. GGG goes, I have a 9-year-old daughter in China. Is there a best method to consistently improve her English every day? Get Frederick. Click on the link in the description below this video. Have your daughter play through that app and she will teach herself English very quickly. Also, watch the beginning English grammar playlist on my YouTube channel. I should probably put a link to that. But if you'd like to help your daughter do that, that's the best way to do it. So she should be able to discover the language for herself, all in English. Tic Tac says, Mar from California, I wanted to thank you. I think sincerely you are the best teacher because you find the right way to be fluent in a very short time. Well, I like to think I'm awesome, but that's up to you all to decide, assuming I'm helping you and getting you fluent though. But really what I'm trying to do with this book is give people an alternative. I personally believe it is the better way to learn, but I've also learned that if I tell people that, they can get angry at me. So it's better just to say, hey, you're doing this one thing over here. If it's not working for you, try this other thing over here. And I think people will find that very helpful. So God bless you for this. It's my pleasure. Deli says, yes, please. I want to be in the book club. All right, well, stay tuned for that. I would like a copy of the book. Let's see. And Ed Nilsson says, and then Drew Badger said, Ed Nilsson, put your phone, and what one video that you like many times. Don't try to translate, just listen. Then the magic happened. Today I retired and been living in Sweden. Wow, look at that. The book should be free for Fluent for Life members. Yeah, I've thought about that. But hopefully we'll see if Fluent for Life members are willing to pay $5 for the book. Hopefully they are. Let's see, Sam says, hi, Drew. Good to see you, my man. Well, look at that. Good morning from India. Manuel says, yeah. And Manuel says, what do you think about C1 and C2 level? What do you mean? What do I think about that? I mean, Fluent for Life, the Vault members. And Elson is a bye, guys. Yes. So I like this isn't included in Fluent for Life, which is its own thing. Like the book is a separate thing, especially also because the physical copy of the book wouldn't be connected with that as well. But I may, when we have the final future version of the book done, then it will probably be included in Fluent for Life. But that will be, you know, whenever the final version is included for that. We'll see. But I think hopefully Fluent for Life members will not complain about having to pay $5 for the book. We'll see. It also supports what I do, but yeah, we'll see what happens. I haven't decided yet. Anyway, we'll leave it there. If you would like to learn more about how you can improve, you can click on the links in the description below this video, not only for Fluent for Life, but also about the Frederick app, which you can use to start teaching yourself or your kids, as people keep mentioning that. But everyone have a fantastic day, and I should see you next week with more updates about what's happening, probably even a link to a page where you can get the book and start reading it yourself. Have a fantastic day. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.